should introduce ourselves. I realize we never do that. Welcome to Connecting Conversations. I am Pastor Liz Troyer. I'm the senior pastor at Wake Forest Presbyterian Church.
And I'm Katherine Piper. I am the director of congregational and community life at Wake Forest Presbyterian Church.
And we just try to spend some time talking about the Bible each week and asking some questions and wondering some wonderings, because the Bible is wonderful and complex and confusing sometimes, and we just think it's good to have some conversation about what we're hearing. So we invite you to join us this week. Katherine, it is Holy Week. How are you holding up?
Oh, good. It's funny. I think I mentioned this to you the other day. It's funny in Holy Week, I don't know why I have this sense of making sure. I think I've read just enough good theological conversation around making sure you don't skip over the hard parts of the week. So like looking at posting for our social media and prepping things for Easter Sunday and feeling like bad about it because I'm having to look forward and I don't want to skip over the hard parts. And the hard parts are right now, the dark conversations of what had to happen in order for us to get to the glory of Sunday. So I found myself like theologically unpacking some of that for myself as I schedule our Easter Sunday videos, and yay, it's so exciting.
It's sort of the weird, like, nebulous world you live in when you work in the church.
Right.
Because it's like, you're doing the things, like you're leading the worship services, you're having the events for Holy Week, but we've already planned like into May. So like in your head, you're like, your head is really in May.
Right. And I guess that's like the crux of church work, is that you have to stop yourself to be present. Otherwise you are all, and everyone expects you to be looking forward and be planning forward. So being present becomes hard sometimes, especially on weeks like Holy Week, when it probably is terribly important for us who work in the church to stop and be present.
Yeah. So I'm always thankful for the worship services during Holy Week, because it does require me for that little time to focus on like what's happening right now, and like recenters me. I used to remember when my husband worked for Walgreens, he would come home from like October to about April covered in glitter, because he'd be resetting the seasonal aisle, and like Christmas stuff always comes with lots of glitter, and then like the Valentine's Day stuff, super glittery, Easter stuff, super glittery, and so like it was like glitter season in our house.
A little sparkle,
because
every time he came home. He was sparkly,
because he gets like a 12 o'clock Saturday. Like some men get 5 o'clock, so he gets like the 12 o'clock. He can shave in the morning and he has a beard when he comes home. So I was like,
my husband is very much the same in that.
You could tell what season it was by what color the glitter was in his beard.
That's awesome.
We're in Nehemiah 5. We're getting ready to start the season after Easter. We're going to be looking at the title of the season is "Are We There Yet?" So the idea of the journey being as important as the destination. So how do we have a holy journey?
Look at that.
How do we value the traveling and the things that happen to us along the way, and not just look forward to the destination at the end?
Isn't that apropos to what we just talked about with Holy Week and church work? Okay.
Yeah, see? It's like it all goes together.
Wow, God. Who would have thought you worked in that way?
And we're in Nehemiah, and we're just going to be honest with you that Katherine and I both went, hey, we're looking at Nehemiah, and neither of us knew anything about it a week ago.
Right.
So,
and I had to actually look in the table of contents of my Bible to find the page number, because I couldn't remember the song, and I'm just going to tell you right now.
I sang the song, but I sang it wrong. I just made it up. I was like, Ezra, Nehemiah, Joshua. No, that's not how it works. Joshua's before. Anyway, Nehemiah is not a book that we spend a lot of time in the Presbyterian world, because it doesn't come up in the lectionary.
Interesting. I wonder why.
I think it's because I could guess. It's Ezra and Nehemiah go together. They're sort of a companion book.
Okay.
And they think originally it was one story that was written like together, to be read together. And we've now divided it based on the main characters. So Ezra's the main character in Ezra, obviously, and Nehemiah is the main character in Nehemiah, but they're both dealing with the same circumstances, right? They're both dealing with rebuilding Israel and Jerusalem after the Babylonian exile.
Okay.
So it's later in their story, and we usually skip over the post-exile return.
Right.
Because for Christians, we go from they go into Babylon.
Yeah.
We read Isaiah. we might read Ezekiel. We like the exile prophets.
Right.
Because they're pointing to a future, right?
Right.
And then we immediately skip to Jesus.
Right. We don't want all the messy in between, once again.
Right. So Ezra and Nehemiah come. They're the first to come back with the waves of exiles who are returning back from Babylon.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
And so this is a story of, all right, Jerusalem's been destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people have left. Were taken. I mean, they didn't leave by choice.
Right.
Some people stayed, which I think we picture like Jerusalem being completely empty, but there were people left behind. So there were people who were there the whole time.
Okay.
And then there were some people who now are coming back, and they want to put everything back the way it was before, right?
Once again, wow.
Yeah.
We've never experienced that before ever in our lives as humans, have we?
I mean, that's what we want, right? It's like when your kid comes home from college, right?
You want them to be the same, and
yeah.
They fold back in.
They come home from Christmas, and you're like, who is this kid is different.
Right. Why aren't you liking the same things?
Yeah.
Why aren't you doing exactly the same that you did before you left?
Yeah. And it's really hard for them too, because they're different, right? And they kind of want to come back and expect everything to be the same as it was when they left for college, right? The house is supposed to freeze.
Right.
And then they just come back and it's exactly the way it was. But there's been time in between, right?
Interesting. And it's supposed to feel the same, which I would imagine that's what the folks in Nehemiah, like, this is supposed to feel the same to me.
Yeah. And so the struggle they're dealing with is they want to Nehemiah wants to reclaim the religious establishment. He wants to make the temple back into what it was supposed to be before. Like, they have said, yeah, we acknowledge the exile was punishment for us not being faithful to God and not doing what we were supposed to be doing. And so now that we get to return, what we're going to do is do all of the things that we were supposed to do before that we didn't do, right? Like, we just follow the rules this time.
Right. It'll be fine.
Yeah. And you feel like they should have read their history books, right? Because Israel's never done what God has asked them to do. But that's what Nehemiah is trying to do here. He's trying to reestablish the temple to re-earn God's favor. And so if we return the temple back into what God had hoped it was, then everything will be fine from here on out. And we'll never have to go through anything ever again. See any potential problems with this theory?
Yeah. I see how very human and but that's like a given, right? If I just do it this way, it'll be fine. Yeah. And it'll always be fine.
It's like after you eat too much food.
Right.
The next day, and you're like, I'm never doing that again.
Right. Until the next night when you're hungry again.
You're like, you eat all night.
Yep.
So that's the struggle here. The other thing we need to know before we read Nehemiah is I mentioned the people who already were in the land.
Yep.
And that's important because those are the people who we think of as Samaritans.
Oh,
so
okay.
This is the beginning of the tension between the returning exiles who are known as Judeans or the Jews at this point. They are called the Jews from this point forward. So this is the tension between the Jews, those who are in Judah, who are returning, and the Samaritans, who were the ones who had been left behind.
Interesting. Okay.
So that's, I think, also helpful to remember.
No. See, this is all the things I don't know.
I know. I was really like, oh, this is interesting. And as I was doing all this research, I was like, man, this sounds so familiar, right? Because we're all sort of post-exile.
Right.
We're like, I remember like when COVID happened, right? And we all are like, while we were in it, we kept our heads down, like in the worst of it.
Right.
We kept our heads down. We just got through it, but now it's supposed to just be done. Right. Oh, well, that was COVID, and now we're now everything can go back to the way it was, except for it can't.
Right. And then there were like in that in between time when we were coming out, it's kind of like that return. It's the folks who didn't feel safe to return, and the folks who were entirely too frustrated about not returning fast enough. And so then you ended up with your camps. Like, are you in this camp or that camp? And you couldn't be in between because then you didn't belong to anybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we like to do that to ourselves, don't we?
My daughter asked me the other day, like, why I made her get a COVID vaccine. Which, I mean, she has had, and maybe it's because she got vaccine early, I don't know. The time she's had it, she's had the most mild cases of COVID. So I've not felt like she needed to get them in subsequent years.
Yeah.
But I was like, well, but don't you remember, like, at the time,
right?
You were in kindergarten, you were getting ready to go back to school. Like, we didn't have a really good treatment plan. We didn't know what your reaction was going to be. Like, we did all of these things because that was the safest thing for us to do at the time.
Yep.
But now we've been through this experience and we realize for you, this is probably not something that you need to do every year, right? And that's, I think, how we look at the past.
Yeah.
We always look at the past through the frame of today. And all the knowledge we have today.
Right.
And all the decisions we would have made with all of the knowledge that we've gotten in the last 6 years. It's been 6 years. Can you believe that?
Yeah. No.
So anyway, that's
wild.
All that's bouncing around in my head because I think that's how we look at. We think the past was different than the past actually was.
Right. Which puts a whole new spin on the concept of like the hindsight is 2020 concept. Like maybe it's not actually.
Yeah. Because what do you remember from your What do you remember from your past?
Right.
I remember riding my bike around my neighborhood with my friends and feeling like I was free. But that was not my entire childhood. Right. That's just what I remember.
It's either the glossing over or the mudding over. It's either that you're glossing it into the rosy colored glasses things, or there was enough trauma to exist that's all you can remember is the trauma piece of it. It's kind of funny. It's either or. You can't remember it as it actually was.
So we're gonna read a little bit about Nehemiah and what Nehemiah is hoping to accomplish, given all of that background information. So can you read 14 and 15?
14, when I find them. There they are. In addition, from the time that I was appointed to be their governor in the land of Judah, that is, from the 20th to the 32nd year, of King
Artaxerxes.
Thank you, Artaxerxes, for a total of 12 years. Neither I nor my family ate from the governor's food allowance. The earlier governors who had come before me laid heavy burdens on the people. They took food and wine from them as well as 40 shekels of silver. Even their servants oppressed the people, but because I was God-fearing, I didn't behave in this way.
How do we feel about our friend Nehemiah?
I am so great. Here's why. Maybe not. I don't know. Like, I can't. This is where Nehemiah, if you'd sent this to me in an email, I can't read your tone. Like, I can't read your tone. Like, this is maybe that's something of where we go wrong in our interpretation of biblical text, just because we can't read into tone. Like, they're not here to tell us what they meant by this. So I don't know. Like, it feels a little.
Yeah. Well,
it's either braggy or it's like, here's what I saw happening, and therefore I didn't repeat it.
And here's why you should trust me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Maybe it is a little bit of like an attestation. Like, remember, I was the nice guy. I was the good governor. Right. I wasn't the one who took advantage of you. And I did.
Right. You know, I noticed the wrong things. Yeah. And I tried to not repeat them.
Yeah. But it does feel a little braggy. King Artaxerxes is, so there's like 4 Persian. So Persia is basically modern day Iran. It's not exactly Babylon, but it's close.
Right.
And there were 4 great kings of Persia. And the first one is Darius. So we've seen pictures of him. He's got like the ringlet beard. Yeah. He's got like statues and stuff.
Yep.
And then Cyrus follows him.
Yes.
And then Xerxes.
Okay.
These are all names we've heard.
Yes.
Because we're close to modern history now. Like, we're in, I think, 400 BC. So almost contemporaneous with the Greeks. Like, real close.
Right.
The Persians and the Greeks had lots of battles and fights and things.
Right.
So we're in modern history.
Right.
And so Xerxes is the last of that the 3 great kings of Persia.
Okay.
Artaxerxes is basically Xerxes' son, what that means. So that he's trying to place himself in history. The problem is Nehemiah and Ezra name all 4 of those kings as part of their life cycle. So we don't actually know when.
Gotcha. It's like, wow, did they all come through at that time? Okay.
Yeah. So
short reign.
It actually spans like 300 years.
Gotcha.
So we got a little bit of a dating problem, but it's somewhere in about 400 BC.
Okay.
And
interesting.
neither I nor my family ate from the governor's food allowance. So who does that remind you of?
I'm sure I'm supposed to know, but
in the Old Testament, the one who got in trouble for not eating what the king told him to and bowing down before him, and Daniel.
I was gonna say
Daniel
wait.
the lion's den.
I was gonna say, well, hold on.
It's like I know it's in there.
My Bible story songs. Yes.
Yeah, this is the same issue Daniel had, right?
Right.
And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Yes.
In a previous under Nebuchadnezzar.
Right. Yeah.
They got thrown into the lion's den and or fiery furnace for having a unique Jewish identity.
Yep. So this is a recurring theme.
This guy gets promoted.
Well,
right?
There we go.
Artaxerxes is like, I was appointed. So he's appointed to be the governor in the land of Judah. So he got promoted.
Right.
And the whole time he was maintaining his Jewish identity and still got promoted. So what does this show us about the change in maybe the approach of the empire?
So there's a recognition on somebody's part.
Yeah.
That the oppressive ways weren't working necessarily.
Yeah.
Or there's a what do you want to call it? Like it's funny to watch over history the kings or the rulers become sympathizers to people who were once considered oppressed or marginalized.
Yeah. So there's basically two methods of conquest.
Yeah.
In the ancient Near East. There's go in, kill everybody.
Right.
Bring your own people in.
Yep.
And repopulate the land. Right? It's like tearing up your lawn and reseeding.
Right. Right.
And then there's method 2, which is remove all the people of power from the land, put our people in charge, and let them stay.
Right.
Which is sort of how it starts to become.
Yep.
Over time.
Right.
Like the Assyrians started it, and now the Babylonians did the same thing. Persians did the same thing. That's why, like, when Rome goes to new places, they don't like wipe out the population. Right. They just appoint their own governor.
I was going to say they just like assimilate everyone.
Exactly.
To their own.
Yeah. And so that's the role that Nehemiah has here. He's now he is working for the government.
Gotcha.
He is there on behalf of Persia as the governor in Jerusalem. So I wonder how, if you were a person who had stayed, who had been left behind, and you'd been trying to maintain your identity and your practices and your religious things, and you'd had a series of governors who were bad,
right? How
you would respond to somebody coming in and being like, no, I know, I did what you did. I just didn't eat the good food.
Right. I feel like there would be suspicion. Like there's the human inclination in me would be to not believe. Like, no, it's almost like you can see it mirrored in the current political environment of just, you don't have a specific reason to mistrust. You just do. And maybe it's because of history, or maybe it's because somebody told you that historically it was bad, and so you should mistrust. And so there's just this like blanket general mistrust, whether or not it's warranted or validated by anything. It's just there. I don't know. That's what I would think the people would be inclined to do. They would have just cause in a certain respect to say, well, look, everyone before you had been horrible. So what's going to make you different just because you don't eat the food?
Right. Just because you happen to look like me and have the same ethnicity as me. And
are you a wolf in sheep's clothing, actually? Because,
I mean,
because you still work for the government.
You're still here on behalf of the empire that's oppressing us.
Right.
It's not like you've given us our freedom and are now coming as like a freedom fighter kind of thing.
Exactly.
This is still a representative of the empire coming in and being in the same place of authority. And now he's just using the language that I would use.
Right.
And so I could understand why, like, if you were one of the people who remained in the land the whole time, why you might have some real anger.
Yep.
And I say that because it makes me appreciate a little bit more how the Samaritans are presented in the New Testament.
Yeah.
Because I think I grew up with this picture of the Samaritans being the enemies in some way. Like, they're bad, and because the Jews and the Judeans are good because Jesus was a Jew, but it's complicated. It's much more complicated.
Yep.
And all of this stuff is way more complicated.
Right.
And
we do well to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Because I think because that kind of creates that shadow of history of complexity should offer us the opportunity to pause on thinking that the solution to current political strife, empire strife, whatever world issues that are swirling right now, that there's any simple solution to anything today, because it's always been more complex than we ever gave it credit for.
Well, I mean, there's 5,000 years of civilizational history at play in the ancient Near East and in the modern Near East. There's so much history, and it's not just like, oh, we'll just go in and solve this.
Right.
Anybody, I mean, everybody who's tried over entire histories who's been an outsider has not been able to fix this. And I think that's a challenge for all sides of this conversation, because I think sometimes my friends who justifiably have concerns about how Israel has dealt with the Gaza situation. And my Jewish friends who are like, yeah, but they did, like, look at what they did, right? I think so often we lose all nuance in these conversations and all historical memory. And, like, this wasn't the first time that this has happened. Right. And these people have had enmity against each other for good reason. For millennia. And so it reminds me to have a little humility, I guess. Is where I'm at. And so he's trying to say, like, you can trust me because I'm one of you. And I've been following the rules as best I can.
And you can imagine if Nehemiah is indeed truthful and honest about that, like, what an uphill battle. Like, how do you actually gain the trust of a people who don't have any reason to trust you or the government that sent you?
All right. 16. Instead, I devoted myself to the work on this wall. We acquired no land, and all my servants we gathered there for the work. 150 Jews and officials, along with those who came to us from the surrounding nations, gathered around my table. 1 ox, 6 choice sheep, and birds were prepared each day. Every 10 days there was a large amount of wine. Yet even with this, I didn't ask for the governor's food allowance because of the heavy burden the people had to carry. Remember in my favor, my God, all that I have done for my people.
Interesting.
I think the first thing that struck me was that the first thing they did was to build a wall.
Yeah.
In order to reestablish order and devoutness and reestablish our identity in the land, we need to build a wall first.
Right.
And I don't know why it bothers me. And I don't know that I can place my finger on why it bothers me so much, except for I think they could have made a different choice. There was it doesn't feel like they made any effort to reach out to the folks who were left behind when they came back. They came back and just sort of were like,
immediately started rebuilding.
Let's return this to the way it. I was told they weren't even alive when they were born in captivity. They have no memory of what Jerusalem was like. And so they're reading stories. And based off of that, they're coming back into the land and saying, and instead of trying to create some sort of community with the people who were still there and trying to work together to find a mutually beneficial solution.
Right. They just came in and did what they
in.
thought needed to get done.
Yeah.
Isn't that human instinct, though? Like, I think about that with regard to the way so many of us of privilege enter into the concept of mission work. And we go in imposing what we believe to be the need of the moment rather than engaging in conversation to ask what the need actually is. It's thinking that you're doing your best, but actually not. It becomes about your agenda, not about the relationships that you think you're trying to build.
This is what's good for you. Yeah. I know what's good for you.
Yes.
And I'm going to come in and tell you what's good for you.
Right.
And that's going to be,
it's easier that way. It's easier that way.
Yeah.
I mean, the first thing that struck me when I saw this is like, okay, well, a wall's an easy build. Like a wall's an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
A physical structure is way easier than building and repairing relationships. Building and repairing a wall sounds, oh yeah, we can do that. Let's do that. I can do that right now. Building and repairing relationships that have been fractured forever.
I was talking to somebody the other day about the Indian resettlement schools. So essentially what happened was after the Civil War, the Native American tribes were given reservations and they were independent essentially on the reservations. Basically we're independent countries inside of the continental United States. And over time, the government decided that the best thing for them to do was to help the children growing up on the reservation to become assimilated into the culture so that they could get jobs. I mean, it was coming from a place of... Theoretically, the people who were doing it were not doing with the intent of harm, I don't think. I generally give people the benefit of the doubt. They're trying to do the right thing. They're trying to be helpful. But they came in and they took all the children off of the reservations and put them into schools to teach them how to be part of the larger culture. And we were just talking about, like, it was coming from a place of, let's help these children succeed. Right. And to be more like the dominant culture so they can fit in and they can get jobs and they're not, because there was extreme poverty on the reservation. There was, I mean, it was not a good situation that they were living in. Right. So we need to acknowledge that. Like it's complicated.
It was imposed upon them by the very people who are then coming in and saying, well, let me fix this for you in another way that's not helpful. But
right.
Sorry.
I just get to thinking about like all of the ways that we try to fix a problem by imposing a solution onto it without doing the hard work of trying to figure out what actually will fix. Right. What will actually help in this situation.
Right. What will genuinely build the community that is sustainable. The relationships because when you sit down to have those conversations, you have to give up something probably.
Yeah.
And I get that. There is an inclination to say, but what I know is the best because I know it and it's worked for me. So, yeah.
Well, and I think too, it's like, it's part of one of the legitimate critiques I think people have of the public school system is they're trying to create one type of child in the end, right?
Right. A one size fits all.
It's and that's practically how you have to do it because you can't individualize education for 30 children in a classroom. Right. That's why smaller class sizes work because teachers can then do more individualized work and help the child be the child. But so much of our culture is designed to try to create people who look, think, and act the same.
Yeah. And it's like it's a chicken or egg. In my mind, it's a little bit of a chicken or egg scenario from the sense of in the very short time I spent teaching and just in any of this kind of like assimilation culture, you recognize that this is the way the culture is at present. So it is a succeed or fail based on how you can fit into what is currently there. But then also, how do you start to shift that culture so that it's not the one size fits all model? So what do you do first, or how do you do both of those things at the same time?
Yeah.
And I think that's where I see it in Nehemiah. I see it in, if I were to truly sit back and kind of look at it from a white privileged position, which is real. It is real. White privilege is real. I feel like we have to say that, or at least I understand it to be real. We have to pay attention to the fact that we fall into that. It is natural inclination, it would seem, and almost human nature to fall back on the simpler of the solutions, which is not to engage both of those tensions at the same time. It is to genuinely believe that what you are thinking is right and then impose that upon the people around you.
I think some of what the issue is for Nehemiah is he's got a solution in mind.
Yeah.
And he has an endpoint in mind already. And so he's going in and trying to impose structures and systems and processes into an existing situation to get to the end result as fast as he can.
Right.
And so the first thing you got to do is separate us from the people who are going to have negative or bad influence.
Right.
Right. It will get to restoring the temple faster if we don't have to deal with these people from the outside who are going to be going, well, wait a second.
Right. It's the top-down leadership model where it's like you're not bringing people alongside. You're not casting a vision. You are imposing a structure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's why it bothers me so much, is because I think
you're not inviting people to see what you're seeing.
Yeah.
You're just telling them that this is what it's going to be.
You don't actually change anybody's heart.
Right.
By putting up a wall.
Right.
You don't change somebody. You don't invite more people into the process.
Right.
You don't invite more people into discovering the kingdom of God and the blessings that come with being part of the chosen people. And you don't invite, and you don't recognize the shared humanity of the other. These people are ethnically exactly the same as Nehemiah.
Right.
The only difference was that they were not taken during the exile. Like they all descended from the same 12 tribes of Israel. Right. They all came from Abraham. They all worship the same God. They call the God the same thing. The only difference is that the Samaritans had to figure out how to worship God while the temple was destroyed. And so they created another temple. They created another system so that they could still worship God. And so the whole problem that Nehemiah has with these people is that they had to figure out how to survive.
Right. In a different way than his people had to figure out how to survive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's like it's almost like a like an Olympics of who had it worse.
Right. Aren't we good at that as humans? Aren't we awesome at playing the consummate victim? Like, no, actually mine was worse.
Actually.
Right.
Yeah. And it's almost to me a little bit like Nehemiah is saying, like, well, I was able to maintain my ritual purity.
Right. It's like, well, good for you. Right. And your point is.
Yeah, he's like, look at all this food I turned down.
Right.
You know, they brought pizza, and they had hamburgers,
and
there
I
was
said
ice
no.
cream, and there was a lot of wine. That was my favorite part.
Yes.
There was a large, every day, 10 days, there was a large amount of wine. He was like,
but I didn't drink it. You're welcome.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, but did it go to the people who are complaining to you? Like, what?
So it's like
you're trying to prove the wrong point, perhaps, here in this moment. Aren't we good at that too? Like, you are proving the wrong point.
Like, look at me. I was able to do the things I was supposed to do. I was able to keep ritual purity, even though I was tempted. And so the first thing I'm going to do is reestablish the temple in Jerusalem so that you can return to that ritual purity too.
Right.
So
it's kind of like the assimilation schools for Native American children. It's like, but look, they can wear our clothes now and they're not uncomfortable anymore. Was that the problem you were seeking? Like it's attacking a problem, but it's not actually creating any benefit.
Well, because they already had the solution in mind.
Right.
This is the goal. The goal is to turn all of these Native American children into white people.
Right.
Which which they understood to be a better thing.
A salvation for this group of people who would probably go extinct under the current circumstances.
Exactly.
Right.
And so you can both acknowledge that it was done with good intent.
Right.
Or what they thought was a good purpose, and that the consequences were bad.
Right.
I think that the two things can coexist.
Yep.
And that goes back to that, we've talked about this before. Like, I don't think I personally need to wear the chains and guilt of something that my ancestors probably weren't even involved in that. They were stuck in a coal mine in West Virginia. Nobody was asking them about how to deal with the Native American problem. Right.
Right.
They were just like, can I get out of this hole, please?
Right.
So I have personally never felt like I should feel guilt or shame around those things, because I didn't I didn't do it. Half of my family wasn't even in the country at the time. I do have responsibility for acknowledging that the consequences downstream have had negative, have had very terrible effects.
Right. And I think it's, that's my goal in life is awareness, self-awareness, and awareness of the inherent privilege with which I exist that others do not. And I think it's that where it's like, I was thinking about, from a parent perspective, when your children are teeny tiny, you get to be the dictator of their lives and say, but this is for your own good. And there are certain things that do kind of fit into that universal model of for your own good. But I think we as a people kind of get into that mode, and we seem to take it to the extreme and start to impose what we believe is for your own good onto others. And I think not acknowledging that is a reality that existed, whether or not the intentions are good, that existed. I need to acknowledge and be aware of that so that it doesn't get recreated in some aspect of my life, because I automatically hold this privilege that others don't.
Well, I think privileges come in lots of ways too. Like,
absolutely,
there's lots of ways we can experience advantages.
Mm-hmm.
Having two parents in the home,
who
are actively involved in loving parents is an advantage. It's a leg up.
Yep.
It's automatically, having enough food to eat is a leg up.
Yep.
It's, having somebody to do your homework with you when you get home from school is a leg up. That was at my husband's former school. It was an underprivileged school, inner city Title IX school, Title I school. And they stopped giving homework. They told the teachers not to give the kids homework.
Because if the home doesn't work.
Because there was nobody at home to help them.
Yep.
And so there was no, the kids who had parents at home were getting their homework done.
Right.
But the kids who didn't have parents at home, didn't have anybody to help them sit down and do their spelling.
Right.
We're we're getting penalized.
Right.
And so, that is something that we need to think about.
Right.
Are there parents at home to help this child, or are they working two jobs because they need to in order? So there's again, all of this stuff is so complex.
Yep.
And so difficult, and there's no right answer.
Right.
And I think that's what lies at my issue with Nehemiah here is I'm imposing into this situation the right answer that I've decided from my position of authority and power from Persia. He wasn't even in Jerusalem at the time. And not actually having a conversation with any of the people who are experiencing the consequences of those decisions.
Right. I guess that I was going to go back to when you really do start to drill in and think about it and see what it is that he's saying, it's tone deaf. Mm-hmm. Telling people, or even bragging to God, which is what it seems like he's doing here.
Yeah.
But I didn't take all this food that was given to me. Well, but did you reapportion it to the people who were starving? Thank you for not taking it.
Yeah.
But was that the goal to begin with? It's kind of thank you for not, starving these people, but was the goal from the beginning to absolutely erase their identity otherwise?
Yeah.
So that they didn't starve? Or did you, did you solve the wrong problem here? Mm-hmm. And now are you wanting credit for solving the wrong problem?
Well, and some of it too is missing the point.
Yeah.
The ritual laws are not there so that you can self-sacrifice. And then
yeah.
Well, I didn't take any of that because I was
Right.
following the rules. The rules don't
Right.
exist as an end to themselves. The
Right.
rules exist to
Right.
help maintain community.
Yes.
And to help us all be on the same page of this is what we've decided as a community together.
Yes.
Help us maintain order and helps make sure everybody is fed and everybody's taken care of,
Right.
and we can all coexist together.
Right.
That's the point of the rule.
Yes.
And I think Nehemiah has lost track of the point of the rule.
Right.
The reason they got taken into exile was not because they weren't following the rules correctly. It was because they had disintegrated as a community and were no longer able to stand up against the invading forces.
Right.
Because they had no community cohesion.
Right.
And again, the destination is not the point.
Right.
The rules are not the point.
Right.
The rules are there to help us agree to what it means to live together
Right.
in this community in a healthy and constructive,
Right.
productive way.
So it becomes that, and I think that is such an important point from this story that then you can carry forward of, okay, Nehemiah, you denied yourself something, but if you were always looking to the other, if you were always looking out into the community of saying, these rules are here because of, so what was the next step? What was the next thing to be done? You deny this extra, this excess that you feel you shouldn't receive. And then what? Mm-hmm. And so maybe that's part of the journey is for us to constantly ask, okay, so we did this thing, and now what? Mm-hmm. Because it's never an end unto itself.
It reminds me too of when Jesus says, I came not to abolish the law, but to fulfill it.
Right.
And then makes it harder.
Right.
Right? I tell you that it's not enough not to kill people. You can't even be mad at them in your heart.
Right. Turn that other cheek.
Yeah.
But I don't wanna. Well.
It's not enough not to steal.
Right.
It's not, Jesus literally says, it's not enough not to just not covet your neighbor's possessions.
Right.
It's what's in your heart that matters. So he doesn't abolish the law. He doesn't say these rules are not important. Right. What he says is, you missed the point. Right. The point of the rules is what happens to your heart when you follow the rules.
Right. And isn't that so it just hit me from the standpoint of the concept of the guilt and the shame and engaging in rule following that leads to the guilt and the shame of what has happened in the past, I think does miss the point once again. It makes me think, I'm not going to say this in the way that I'm thinking it because I don't think I have the adequate words to say what I'm thinking at the moment, but it's this concept of if I think about my sense of self-awareness around my privilege, my history, my whatever, if I think about it from a rule following standpoint, I am inevitably going to have some guilt and some shame over what history has done to others because of people that have also shared my position. Mm-hmm. But if I approach my self-awareness from that concept of, okay, so now what do I get to do because I know what it is that I have to offer, because I know what leg up I have, that's freeing. That's joyful, because then I get to move into the world in a positive space and know that history doesn't define what I choose to do now. God's will defines what I choose to do now. So it's, I don't know. That might have just been a rabbit hole that didn't matter or didn't connect here.
No, I think that's valid. I think to give Nehemiah his due. Yeah. What he's attempting to accomplish here is to say, yeah, I have this position of authority. Right. How can I use it for the betterment of my people? Right. It's very much an Esther situation. Esther gets put in this position of power and authority, and Mordecai says to her, what are you going to do about it? Right. What are you going to do with this? Now that you're queen, you have responsibilities to your people. Right. And to give Nehemiah credit, that's what he's trying to do. Right. He's saying, I have this position of authority. Being a Jew has been an important part of my identity my entire life. I have made sacrifices for the sake of who I'm claiming to be and who God is calling me to be. And so that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm here to help my people
Right.
become the best version of themselves they can be. And he just goes about it in a way that continues to perpetuate harm.
Right.
But that's not what he's trying to do.
That's not his intention.
That's not his intention.
So there's grace to be offered in this story as well.
Yes.
Not just, it's very easy for me to sit here and point out what thousands of years later, well, here's where you misstepped, Nehemiah. You should have seen that one coming.
Yeah, I've got a solution for Middle East peace. And it's going back 3,000 years and telling Nehemiah not to build the wall around Jerusalem.
Yeah. Well, here's your first problem. Yeah. I am doing the exact thing that I am like fussing at Nehemiah for doing. I'm like, well, no, see, I know what the problem was now. And I know what the solution should have been.
I could have fixed everything, you know?
That's right. If only.
Well, it's funny because the next chapter in my Bible is labeled Nehemiah avoids his enemies.
Yes, mine too. Yep. Of course you did.
We were continuing to read. We would hear we would see Nehemiah experience the consequences of his decision because the first sentence is, now all these people are coming and they're my enemies and they're mad at me. And,
right.
I mean, I aspire to live a life where I don't have any enemies.
Right.
Like that's a goal of mine.
Right. Can't always help it if you decide that you're my enemy. I would not like to encourage it.
Yeah.
But
I'm not recruiting enemies. I'm not a Marvel superhero.
Go. Right.
I'm just trying to live. So I think that's somewhat like, okay, well, Nehemiah, like,
right.
Yeah, you were trying to do good, but here's some consequences for you, friend.
Yeah. Right. Own them.
Yeah.
Move through them.
Well, and to be honest, this wall doesn't do any good.
Right.
Because they're still in Persia. They're still under control of Persia. When Persia starts to recede, Rome comes in and takes over. There's no point where they're free.
Right.
There's no time in history where this wall serves the purpose that Nehemiah intended for it to serve.
And isn't that funny? Like the lesson learned of the thing will never get you to the end that you're seeking.
Yeah.
The relationship quite possibly could, but the thing that you build or the thing that you think is going to be the solution. It's never a thing.
Yeah.
It never was a thing.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Because I think if Nehemiah had put this energy into reestablishing relationships with his kinsmen, the tribes around them that were descended from the same ancestor, if he'd put that work into rebuilding the relationship, how much stronger would they all have been?
Right.
Is there a point where they might have been free? Is there a point where they could have said to Rome, no, like I can stand up against you.
Right.
Because I am so strong.
Yep.
Because it's not just me. It's not just Israel by itself. It's not just, the people of Samaria who are by themselves. We're so much stronger
as a group. Yeah. Well, and I mean, I think God makes the point. Does God not? In what did God send as the ultimate understanding? It wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
It was a person. It was a person who spent his life engaging in relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think I've always been, some pastors never preach from the Old Testament because it's complicated.
Yeah.
And it's not directly related to Jesus. I mean, it doesn't say the word Jesus in it.
Right. Right. So. But it's important historically, right? I mean, this is rather knowable history.
Yeah.
Because we as humans continue to engage in a lot of the same behaviors.
Yeah. Well, and it really informs our understanding of Jesus didn't drop out of the sky, right? Jesus came to the earth as an embodied human with historical context and in a particular place and time.
Yep.
And I think it matters that we know all of the history, and that when Jesus tells us things like, you pray, that you have heard it said, love your neighbor as yourself. Well, I tell you to love your enemies.
Right.
that's not just coming out of nowhere.
Right.
There's deep historical memory that he's like, it's a super big challenge that he's actually offering to these people.
Right.
Because it's easy to love your neighbor. It's easy to love the people inside the wall with us.
Right.
But Jesus is
those
saying,
who persecute you.
Yeah.
How are you supposed to love them? Yeah.
That's a radical claim.
Right.
With historical memory to it, because it's saying like, no, like Nehemiah had made a different choice.
Right.
Nehemiah had chose to love his enemies.
Right.
Instead of
building a wall
and loving his neighbors.
Yep.
Would Jesus have even had to come?
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So
history matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what's your takeaway today, Catherine?
Oh, goodness. I think, as always, it is the complexity of and the importance of understanding the historical context under which we read this holy book. That it is not a magic book. It is not a magical, everything is easily understood if I just pick it up and open the pages and read something on it. And so to water down the Bible in that way is dangerous. Mm-hmm. So I love being confused by Scripture. Ooh. I really do. I love feeling like my brain hurts a little bit, like I'd studied something difficult. And I feel a little bit like that today because I came in completely blind. I didn't know Nehemiah from Adam. Yeah. I mean, so I now find myself a little hungry to know more. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. I think Nehemiah reminds me of how long our story is. That I think we think about our personal stories, like our individual story, as being something we write completely from a blank slate. Right. You know, you're born into this world and you get to write your story.
Right.
And that's a lovely idea.
Yeah.
And some of it is true. We do make choices and all that.
Right.
But man, we're born into a story that's so big.
Yeah.
And so long and so complicated and stretches beyond us in so many ways. And I just think we need to live life with a little bit more humility.
Right. I was just about to say that is a humbling thing to think about. And that is probably what we all need most right now. Is a little bit of that extra dose of humility around our position and our place in the story.
Mm-hmm. And our job is to be a steward of the story.
Mm-hmm.
We don't get to write it.
Right.
And we don't get to edit it or shape it or take parts out of it that are uncomfortable.
Right.
Or make the story into one that makes us feel better.
Mm-hmm.
Like we just have to deal with the story as it is.
Yep.
And then write the next chapter in the story.
Right.
In learning from our past.
Yeah. It's the and now what?
Yeah.
What's next?
Yeah. If my job is just to steward this 50 years of the story, it's humbling and a tremendous responsibility.
Yeah.
Because I have a responsibility not to repeat the mistakes of when you know about them.
Right.
And you see the consequences about it. You have a responsibility, I think, to do what you can to make a different choice.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially if you're going to claim to be a person of faith.
Mm-hmm.
That carries its own heavy weight of responsibility that we would do good to remember.
Yeah. So next Sunday is Earth Care Sunday around here.
Yes.
So we're going to be talking a little bit about how we can learn about the rhythms of our journeys by studying creation. Because creation has in itself a journey and a rhythm and a pattern that it would do us well to notice. And so we're going to be in Exodus. Believe it or not, 23 is where we're going to be headed next week. We're going to be looking a little bit about what the people who are leaving Israel notice as they're stuck in the desert.
All right. I'm excited. I'm going to go read up on some Exodus. I know a little more about Exodus than Nehemiah, but never hurts to study ahead.
Well, and we know parts of Exodus.
There we go.
It's a big book.
I know a little bit. I know this much.
We skipped the parts where they're like, and then the tent was 100 cubic feet.
Right, yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
So,
yep.
We'll see you next week.
All right. Have a good one.
These podcasts will always be free. However, if you find them meaningful and would like to consider supporting our online outreach, you can donate using the link in the description or at wakeforestpres.org.